All right, Stevie Coaster, friends out there, PowerShell community. We're here for a PowerShell Wednesday. Another Wednesday, we're back at it, 2 p.m. Eastern, and that is PowerShell Wednesday on a Wednesday because apparently I messed it up last week. But sometimes you're working on a script and you get to a point where things get a little screwy. You could say the UX isn't quite what it could be. You could maybe deliver this in a different way. Well, when that happens, turn to a GUI. And Stevie, you have some experience with this, not only with the solutions we're going to talk about today, but you've been doing PowerShell for a long time. And I know we've all back in the day dabbled with some previous solutions for GUIs, but I think we're in the current era. We have some pretty cool things at our disposal these days, right?
We do, yeah. So GUIs have been around in PowerShell for as long as PowerShell's been around, honestly. You've been able to do them because everything's built on .NET. And there's been some really, really good tools throughout the years that have come to allow you to, make really nice user interfaces for your tools. But it's gotten a lot better in recent years. So there's some really interesting technologies out there now that are very, very approachable. So I'm hopeful that during our time here together, we can walk through when it makes sense to leave a script and when it makes sense to make something a GUI, or when do you make the jump and do something even more than that. So lots to dive into today
To
for sure.
infinity
Yeah,
and beyond.
yeah,
All right.
exactly.
I see
Yeah,
where we're going today.
yeah, yeah,
Well, if you want to
yeah.
share screen, you can click the present thing at the bottom.
Awesome. Let me see. Can I do my whole screen? Yes, I can. I want to do the entire screen over. Nope, not that one. This one. There we go. I'm going to put your face over here so that we can see my VS Code window. All right, so we're probably all familiar as PowerShell developers, right? About writing scripts. So, we come in here, we can write PowerShell to do whatever the task is that we're trying to accomplish at any given time. Today, I'm going to talk all about certificates, right? PKI, it's one of the most frustrating parts of being a sysadmin. It's interesting to tackle problems related to PKI and PowerShell, and there's several different ways to skin a cat to do this kind of stuff as well. So it lends itself really, really well to the topic at hand. So I want to start with the traditional sense of doing things. And I'm going to blow this up so that we can see it a little better and maximize VS Code. And let's just walk through this really quickly. So this script, all it does is takes a certificate file and a private key that maybe you have and converts it to a PFX file, which in PKI world, if you're not familiar with certificates, a PFX file is basically a fancy zip file that contains your certificate and that private key as well. And then you can ship that around, install it in your Windows stores, put it on your Linux boxes, whatever the case may be. So this script, all it does is uses the OpenSSL command to bundle your cert and your private key into a PFX file. So if we were to come down here and let me just go grab a certificate real quick. So I'm going to say open cert path. Let's grab my Willy Wonka domain. That sounds good. So I'm going to grab this cert.serve file, right click and copy its path. And let's just run this script as you normally would a PowerShell script, right? So I'm going to say convert PS1, give it this cert file, and I'm going to cheat and say key and just change the cert to key so we're a little bit quicker. And then I need a couple of other pieces of information. I need the PFX file. Where are we going to save this thing? And I'm going to blow this up a little bit more so we can see
Yeah,
the
perfect.
terminal session as well. And I'm just going to save this to my temp directory, and I'm going to call this Wednesday.pfx. And the last thing I want to do is supply a password for the certificate. So I have to include a password when I import it onto Windows. So for this, I'm just going to say, let's do this. Let's do push Wednesday, and let's convert this to a secure string. That's plain text, and force that guy. I'll call that good. Now if I do get child item of my temp directory, there's my PFX file, and I can import that into my Windows system and go about my day, do whatever else I need to do, right? This script works. It works really well. And if you're a PowerShell developer or a sysadmin who's used to PowerShell, I can deliver this script to you and you can immediately use it and know what's going on. I should add some help to the parameters and all that good stuff in here to make it a truly finished script. But you get the point, right? Like it's a PowerShell script, you run it with some parameters and you're good to go. What if you are not a PowerShell developer or very, very new to PowerShell and everything I just did is super confusing? Well, thankfully, PowerShell can help you out there as well. We have the ability to create GUIs out of PowerShell scripts. And one of my favorite tools to do that, and it's really, really new, it's not been out very long, is this new PowerShell module called WinUI Shell. And what it does is it wraps the Windows app ADK and provides you with those really, really nice, rich graphical user interfaces like you're used to seeing on modern Windows. The settings app inside of Windows 11 is a modern Windows app. That's the style of application that you're able to generate using this PowerShell module called WinUI Shell. And if we were to just run the GUI script here, I can just demonstrate it, right? Like this is the GUI. This is what this looks like. And this PowerShell script that's behind me here, I'm just going to minimize this again. This is all the code that I wrote to make that form happen. I'm not going to go super into the weeds on this. I'll touch on it lightly. But basically, it all starts with defining what the actual application itself looks like. And you can kind of consider this, pretend you're Bob Ross for a second, right? And you've got this canvas and you want to paint this picture. And the app that you create is going to be the picture. So by using the different components that are available inside the WinUI Shell module, such as text boxes and panels and things like that, you can start to lay out the components onto the canvas in such a way that it makes sense for the end user, whoever you're going to deliver this GUI to. So inside of here, I've got a couple of things. I've got a panel for the title and icon of our application. And I've got some text boxes for things like the path to the certificate file, the path to the private key, the path where we want to save the PFX file, and I've got a password box. All the components that we need that were parameters in the original script that I showed off at first are now GUI components on this new Windows app form. And because I can, you can dress up the form so that you get better, I guess, better display of progress, right? Like you can kind of show people what's happening in real time as things are happening in a way that's better than using write progress inside of a script. In the case here, I'm using a progress ring, which is just one of those little spinny circle loading indicators. It does support like loading bars and everything as well. And there's a new version of the module just dropped. I don't even have it installed yet, that allows you to multi-thread things. So you can have like multiple things with progress in the same app doing different things. So they're really, really actively developing this module and adding more and more support as they go. We've got a status box, which will just show a little message to say we're done at the end. And then we've got our button, which is the, hey, convert button. And then our action, if you look, is the action is essentially the same exact thing as the original script. So if we look at the original script, we've got the options or parameters that we want to pass to OpenSSL, and then we call OpenSSL with those parameters. Same exact thing in the add click method of our button. We have a slightly different thing going on here where I'm using a try catch and producing a transcript. So I have a log of what happens during GUI execution. But the same thing happens. Like I'm calling OpenSSL with my parameters, and then I'm setting the status indicator or the status message to this done message. And because it supports emojis and all that fun stuff, we can use emojis in those messages. And then in my catch, I'm just saying, hey, if there was an error, log the error and stop the transcript. Super, super simple stuff. And then we're doing things like once the certificate has been converted to a PFX, instead of the button saying convert, we change the button text to say close. And then we set this script variable to true, because at the top of the button, if that's set to true, when you click the now close button, it's going to close the app because we're done. So that's how you can kind of control the app being closed out after whatever you need to do is done as well. So all kinds of flexibility that you can do. And now that we've got all those components defined, we've got our progress ring, we've got our text boxes, we've got our buttons. Now we need to paint them onto our canvas. So we've got this other panel that we're going to use to display all of our user input sections. And then we just paint all of that information onto the canvas by saying win.content equals panel. And then we activate the window. So again, if I come over here and I run this, and let me just quickly go over here and grab this again. And I'm going to do basically the same exact thing. Call this a GUI. I'm going to say ctemp. What did I call the last one? Wednesday? Yeah, so we're going to call this one GUI.pfx, and we're going to give it a password. So pwshwed. And again, it's a password box, so it masks the input. You can click the little eyeball to reveal the password. It's got all the nice graphical modern things that you would expect out of an application. And then when we say convert, you can see it really, really quickly spun that progress ring. But this happens so fast that it kind of goes away almost immediately. And I think I still have that temp directory open. I do. Here's that log file that got created, and we can see, it's, in this case, there were no errors, so it's pretty silly. There's no output really. But then we've got both that GUI PFX and that Wednesday PFX from the first initial attempt. And again, if we right click on these things, it is a PFX file. We can say install, we can go to local machine, we can come in here and do all the things with it we would expect. Let me do, what did I make that password? Posh Wednesday. I don't need to mark the keys exportable. And I will just real quickly put this in the trusted people store and say, okay. The import was successful. Now I've got that certificate, right? So if I come back over here, I can say get child item. Let me not be lazy. Let's do get child item cert local machine trusted people, and this one is a certificate that I just put onto the system. So it works. It did exactly what it was supposed to. That is using the WinUI shell module, right? Super quick. Sure.
Do you know if there's a browse button to bring up the file picker? Is there support for that? I didn't.
So
saw that or not.
There isn't a native like control yet to do that, but inside of this add click button, you can do whatever you want. So you could, in theory, come into the add click button here and use the, what is it? The open, I can't even remember what it is. I think it's open file dialog and then go new and then start to decorate it out there. So
okay, so you could create your own and like put it next to the window, and when they click browse, it'll put the result in the thing. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So when they click browse, it would do that. And then, yeah, exactly that. Exactly that.
Because it relies on the native file browser. Ultimately,
Yeah.
that's all it's calling. It's not a WinUI shell thing.
Yeah, exactly. So you could use just a button inside of WinUI shell that says, you know, browse or open or whatever, paint that onto the panel, and then capture the output of whatever that is, and then put that as the text of the text box or whatever.
Yep.
The same way down here, I'm saying status.text. The text boxes that I have, let me find one. Instead of placeholder text here, we could say txt key dot text is equal to, you know, whatever that component was that you had inside of that button. So you absolutely could implement a browse button for a file picker if you wanted to. It's not native in WinUI shell yet, but you can absolutely abuse the button to and some .NET to do it yourself if you wanted to. Yeah,
I love WinUI shell.
It's so cool.
Good.
They recently released a version as well that lets you just import XAML. So if you've got like XAML code from other GUI apps and stuff, maybe you've got a C# app or whatever, and you've got the XAML defined for the layout and everything, you can just render the XAML and it'll do the app.
I feel like AI can create XAML.
Oh yeah.
Like 100%. I feel like it's trained. It's one of those things that might be, that's like HTML kind of thing. Like it's pretty good at it. So hey, easier for me. That's wild.
Exactly. I'm gonna not save that file so I don't screw anything up there. But that's a simple app, right? Like those simple scripts that maybe you want to deliver to an end user to, you know, use on their own or whatever. One of the ways that you could deliver this to an end user would be to do something like this. And I'm totally cheating because I did this earlier. So you could create a desktop shortcut, for example, that just calls PowerShell with a path to the PowerShell script that you want to run. And this will really quickly open and hide a PowerShell window, pop the UI up. They can do what they want to do and then close it. And then it all goes away magically. So it's not the cleanest way to deliver an application to an end user, or maybe you've got like a help desk staff or something that you want to give these tools to. It's workable for sure, but it's not as clean as, you know, opening a true executable or program that's been installed on the system, right? It's because it's just a PowerShell script that happens to launch a GUI to do whatever it is you're trying to do. But again, it works. It's simple. Well, simple enough. It's free. And sometimes free is good enough, right? To quote my friend Gilbert, good enough is good enough. That's right. Sometimes, right?
Silbert Ganchez, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I rant on this with you a little bit?
You can.
Because I think that's ultimately what so many solutions we find in PowerShell are. You run a bunch of stuff, you figure out that one line that sets something, and that's the task that you solve. And yeah,
Yeah.
you can wrap it up in a bunch of stuff. But ultimately, like what you're talking about here, maybe you're sharing it with other people. Well, you can just wrap it up in a beautiful wrapper like that quite easily, as you saw there. I mean, borrow Stevie's code, find some code that already works and repurpose it is what I say. That
Mhm.
way you don't have to actually learn all the different elements. But then you can do that and you can wrap it up in a super nice way and you can still ultimately run that one line of code, but it's all the padding where you can like choose the file or maybe select this or all those little things that other people on your team might want. And then all of a sudden,
Right.
I mean, it's just like such an easy win to look so good. Like you create this, you show it to your boss. If like this isn't a developer organization, you're gonna be blowing minds out there.
Hmm. Yeah, it's definitely a way to make yourself look good. And making yourself look good leads to, career growth almost all the time, right? Like
Right.
this PowerShell stuff will change your life for sure if you take the time to do it. So, uh, yeah, I love it. This stuff is addictive. But what's next, right? Like we've showed a simple PowerShell script that converts a certificate to a PFX file. And then we enhanced that script by wrapping a GUI around it. But what if you want more, right? What if even that isn't easy enough? Or what if that is just a small subset of the overall problem that you're trying to solve? What tools do we have available to us as PowerShell developers to make our lives easier, to solve those problems that we see day in and day out that we can deliver to our end users, whether that end user is another sysadmin on your team, maybe uh, a help desk staff of some kind, um, or maybe it's Becky the receptionist that needs to do something every time somebody calls her or whatever. Like there are all kinds of use cases for PowerShell in the organization, and yeah, the sysadmins will probably be fine with running the PowerShell script or launching the PowerShell script GUI tool or whatever you create. But Becky in the front office isn't going to do that. Like she doesn't want to. It's confusing and she's just not into it, right? What else can we do? Well, thanks to this tool called PowerShell Universal, we can start to deliver even more powerful solutions than we've already seen. So if I log into my instance here, let's just show you what all PowerShell Universal can do for you. So we'll do the same kind of thing, and I'm going to cheat and not do everything just in the interest of time, but I'll show you the quick ones, and then we'll touch on the other pieces as well, but we won't actually execute them, at least here. So PowerShell Universal provides you a web-based platform for running PowerShell jobs, which are just scripts that execute, and those scripts can have parameters.
Can you
So
control plus a couple times?
I can. It's a little bit small. How's that? Is that better?
I think that looks good.
Okay, cool. So inside of the automation platform, I've created two scripts, and they're super, super simple. One is called getcert.ps1, and the other is called requestcert.ps1. You can probably guess what each one does, right? They're pretty easy or pretty simple to grasp what they do. So if I were to come in here and I were to say, what's one I did earlier? I'm trying to think I think I did trial.willywonka.dev. If I run this, it's going to go in the back and hopefully I did it right. Yeah, there we go. So all this does is it goes out and it pulls the trial.willywonka.dev certificate that I generated previously. And I can have, you can have whatever certificates in this case. That's all it does. So I generate all of my certificates using Let's Encrypt. So when Let's Encrypt finishes its process, it gives me back the certificate in multiple different formats. And then you can query for those different certificates and then interact with them. That's all this does. I'm just using the Posh Acme module behind the scenes to retrieve the certificate that I care about. The same thing is possible to do with this request cert script. So I can say run script, and because I'm doing it here in the web UI, it's going to pop the window open and ask me for the parameter values that are mandatory. So if I wanted to have a new certificate, like for example, Wednesday.willywonka.dev, and an email address, I'm just going to say sv@mail.org. I'm going to lie and make one up and just hit run. This is the one that's going to take a minute, right? Because what it's doing now, because I'm using Posh Acme and I have Cloudflare set up as the DNS for Willy Wonka, the Posh Acme module has a Cloudflare plugin plus like 30 other plugins for DNS that you can use that will talk to the Cloudflare DNS zone via the API, and then it will do all the DNS records to produce the Acme challenge that Let's Encrypt needs, and then generate a certificate for me and give it back. There's a hard-coded wait of 2 minutes baked into that process, though, for the DNS challenge to happen. So we need to create the text record inside of my DNS zone, and then that needs to propagate so that the Acme challenge completes successfully. So they've baked in a 2-minute wait time in the new PA certificate commandlet to allow for that propagation to happen so that we can get that certificate back. If you need certificates, though, Let's Encrypt is the way to go, because one, they're free, and two, there's this Posh Acme PowerShell module which makes it stupid easy to request them and renew them. Super great. But this is the automation platform that allows you to do that stuff. But again, that's not super easy. I mean, it's good for going in and setting it up and testing everything's working and stuff like that, but I can't really give that to an end user. I mean, a sysadmin, I probably could, and maybe some help desk folks, yeah. But Becky in the front office, no, absolutely not. What I would want to do for her is give her a website that she can visit. So inside of PowerShell Universal, you can also do portals, which are basically just pages. So I've created this PowerShell Wednesday page, which if you look and we view it, it shows you the last job that completed, and it automatically generates a form based on PowerShell scripts that you've defined in your automation platform. So again, if I wanted to do trial.willywonka.dev, I could do that. I think I've got a t2.willywonka.dev as well. Let's see. I don't remember if that's one or not. Yeah, it's not. Let me go see if that Wednesday one is done yet. Yeah, it is. Cool. So if we go to portal and then we go to pages, let me view this page again. Oh, there it is. It just needed refreshed. So if we go to Wednesday.willy.dev and we submit that one. I've never used this portal stuff before, so I'm not sure how I'm supposed to refresh this. I'll be honest, I'm just showing you that it is possible to create these form things automatically without any code. So you can come in here, and if we wanted to, we could add a widget. We could say add a script form. Here it is, and then we can go to the properties of that one, and we can select the script, and there's the new form. We're done. That's it. So now when we reload this portal page, we've got both our get thing, with the results and then the requests so that we can request new certificates. So PowerShell Universal via pages also gives you the ability to have a low to no code solution for building graphical universal or graphical interfaces for the scripts that you write, and then storing them inside of your automation platforms, etc. Where PowerShell Universal really starts to get super, super cool is in the apps category. So if we look at our apps that are defined in PowerShell Universal, I've created this PowerShell Wednesday app. And if we open that up, and actually, I'm going to pause before we dive into this. I'm going to pause and see, are there any questions floating through to the chat that we need to grab real quick and answer, or can I keep going?
I did not see any questions.
Okay, cool. All right. So this is an app inside of PowerShell Universal, and apps are made up of different components. We've got cards. That's what all of these are. We've got tables. That's what this is. And then we've got inputs, we'll call them. So we've got text boxes, we've got buttons, we've got these little, these are called typographies that let you input text onto the pages. There's a lot going on here, and that there are components called stacks, which allow you to lay out the page. So I've got a stack that's putting these two cards side by side, and then all of these are kind of nested into a grid, which gives us this card up top, two cards in the middle, table in the bottom kind of thing. And again, if we were to want to do this stuff, we could go to wednesday.willywonka.dev and say get certificate. And what this is going to do is just monitor the job. It's going to go get that certificate information, and it's going to provide it in that table automatically when it fetches it. So we're interacting with a lot of components of PowerShell Universal behind the scenes, but an end user who has no idea what any of this stuff is just interacting with a website, which they do every single day. So they can look for a certificate. We're going to return that certificate, and then I can click this download button. And what that's going to do is it's going to return all of the actual files that Let's Encrypt produced when we requested this Wednesday certificate. So if I needed just the PFX file, I could come in here and I could say download, and there's my PFX file. Or maybe I just needed the private key for the certificate for whatever reason. I could come in here and I could download the private key, etc. This is a tool that literally anybody in your organization can use. And as a PowerShell developer, this is the code I use to write it. It's not a lot. It's 350 lines of code to put that app together. It's not very much. So I'm going to minimize some of this stuff and we can kind of walk through it. So again, just to take you through a bit of layout here, I'm going to move. Can I like squish this a bit so it's easy to see both at the same time? Let's
Windows arrow key, I think.
Yeah, is that what it is?
Yeah, Windows arrow key.
Yeah, there we go. Beautiful. Can I do that? Yeah, there we go. I always forget about keyboard shortcuts. So we've got our stack, as I mentioned, and then the content of our stack is just this card at the top. And then it's just PowerShell to start laying this stuff out. We've got icons, which is the icon that you see. And then we've got another stack that allows us to put two pieces of typography, one on top of the other. We've got the header, let's call it, and then we've got the subheader, let's call it, underneath that. And we're using different variants to control the size of the text. And then because I have no earthly idea what I'm doing when it comes to CSS and web design, Claude in GitHub Copilot styled the card for me to make it look like somebody who actually knows what they're doing designed it for me. And that's what this style is doing here. And again, the spacing too just tells you how much space is going to be between this and the next component. And you can play with that to lay out things however you need it. So that's the upper kind of header portion. And then we start to dive into the grids. So the first grid lays out, again, these two cards here. So we have a grid that's a container, and then we have grid items inside of there. And those items are the request new certificate card. And then let me minimize these correctly. I don't think I'm minimizing these correctly, and I can't really see all the code. So let me blow this out. So we've got the grid that holds the request card. And then we've got the grid that holds the individual components as well. So we've got the big grid container, and then we've got grid items for the text boxes on the form and the button on the form. And then we lay all that stuff out. And then we display a modal. We're doing some job stuff. And what we do basically is, let me see here. We get the request.ps1 job out of the automation engine, and then we invoke that job here with the values for the mandatory parameters. So the domain that we're requesting and the contact email that we're requesting as well. And once that job has been kicked off, we pop this modal out, and then we just say, hey, we're going to wait for the certificate. And while the job is running or queued, we display that message. Once that is done, we return the final output, which will just be the object. And then we close the modal. So that happens really, really quickly. But that's what happens there. And then we get the output, the pipeline output of the job as an object. That way we can come down here, and let me go all the way to the bottom. There's a table that we update down here. So this table, we get all of the data based on the result of that job running, and then we display it. So it's all PowerShell. It's a lot of PowerShell. The docs for PowerShell Universal are pretty decent, and I find that AI is really, really good at helping you with styling your components and also doing a layout as well. So a lot of the times what I'll do is I will do the base thing that I want. I'll put a table on the page, and then I'll go into Copilot and I'll be like, hey, I want this table to be in a card that's got a light gray background. And I'll let AI wrap the table in the card and style it for me. And then once that's done, I'll move it around or put stuff above it or below it or whatever I need to do, right? It's not a ton of work to put this stuff together, especially if you use AI. AI is going to help you along the way, but don't rely on AI, right? Like, actually read the docs, write the code, do some simple stuff so that you understand the commandlets that you're using inside of this stuff to build these dashboards. Because if you just let AI do all the work for you, you're not going to be able to troubleshoot it very, very easily, right? Like, and you're going to struggle to understand what's going on or whatever. Like, there's even some stuff in this script that I could fix because I let AI generate the table that displays all of the various files that are available for download based on a given certificate. I let AI generate the code and I just left it. This is not at all how I would do this. I mean, the if statements are okay, I guess, is like an error checking kind of thing, but I wouldn't do this for getting the file name of a thing. I definitely wouldn't use an array if I were to write it myself. I would use a collection and then add these individual hash tables to the collection. Like, there's stuff that AI does that as a PowerShell developer, you know better. Like, there are more performant ways or there are better ways to do things. You'll have to combat that stuff along the way if you just strictly rely on AI. So do the hard work, learn the commandlets, and then you use AI to help you augment stuff, make it look pretty, things like that. Like, I'm never going to be a web developer, so I'm never going to spend the time learning CSS to the level that I would need to make this stuff look good. AI is really good at helping me with that. But I understand what a card is and all the pieces and parts of a card, or what a table is and how to build a table with columns and things like that. And learning that you can basically lie to a table and be like, this column, for example. Let's just look at this one here. The object that we're working with, this download files data, doesn't have a property on it called download. But we're adding a column to the table called download and giving it a title called download. So that's what it shows up as. But this render parameter is a script block that basically allows you to manipulate that property. So that download property now becomes whatever's inside of here. So it becomes a button that when you click on it, it runs a start UD download command with the path to the file that is part of the object, that's part of the data. And then if something happens, we get a message that says, hey, something happened, whatever, and it's an error. So you can really start to mix and match the components that are available to you inside of your dashboards to make some really, really, really complex stuff. It's super, super fun. If you don't use PowerShell Universal, why not, basically, right? The PowerShell Universal is so good. I highly, highly recommend everybody take a look at it, especially if you're trying to turn scripts into GUIs. Like, it just makes sense, and it can do so much for you. It's really, really good. And it's free. Like, you can pay money for a license for PowerShell Universal, and doing so gets you a whole bunch of extra functionality that we haven't touched on today. But the free version is powerful enough to do stuff like this, right? Like, this is an application that I would be more than happy to give anybody in my organization who needs to request a new certificate for maybe a service that they're building or a new product that they're using or whatever. Super, super cool.
We got some good questions in the chat, so let's settle into it. You did a great job. Shout out to Constantine, by the way, for coming by. But Morton has a question. Is there any access control for the different apps, dashboards you create, or is it you have access to PSU so you can see it all?
So you can limit the experience of an app. So if you go into properties and you go into execution, you can control the different execution environments itself. So you can run it strictly in PowerShell 5.1. You can run it in PowerShell 7 because I have PowerShell 7 installed here, or the integrated environment that ships with PowerShell Universal. You can run an app as a specific user if you want to, like the actual PowerShell process that's running in the background to show you the app, you can have a credential there. Or you can go to the security tab and you can enable authentication that will require you to log into the application. And then you can also assign roles for the apps as well. So yeah, you can do all kinds of stuff. Adam actually he's got some docs and he's also got some video content on their YouTube channel where he walks you through hooking up authentication to your apps inside of PowerShell Universal to Entra. So you can log in with your Azure AD credentials and all that good stuff. So
Which makes sense. If you're actually going to
yeah.
develop a solution properly, it makes sense to pay for it.
Yeah. And I don't know that you actually have to pay to do that authentication stuff. I think you can do it without it, but don't quote me on that because the security thing, if actually, yeah, there it is, the authentication. That piece of it does require a license. There you go. But you can do simple stuff with authentication with the built-in roles and things like that. But it does look like that advanced stuff for like using Intra requires a license, which you should support Adam because this is an amazing product and it's like $500 a year. It's a PDQ deploy license is what it costs. Like it's
pretty
cheap.
inexpensive.
Yeah.
It's a great option, and we're very fortunate that we have a option like PowerShell Universal. Like if you're learning PowerShell, the ceiling of what you can build is really high. I think that for me, if I were to like loosely, inaccurately categorize the two solutions you showed today in different buckets, I would say WinUI Shell is great for a script, whereas PowerShell Universal can accommodate a module, can be a platform.
Yeah.
You can incorporate a whole bunch of stuff a lot easier. Yes, you could, but it's going to be a different developing experience, I'd say.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And different strokes for different folks. Like what works for this use case might not make the most sense over here. Those super simple tasks that might need a GUI, yeah, WinUI Shell is good. But if you're developing a tool that needs to be like a whole suite of things or a platform, Universal would be the way to go. And there are other options as well, like Pode is one that's a PowerShell web framework thing. I've never used Pode. I've always used PowerShell Universal, but Pode is really popular and pretty feature rich as well as an option.
Yeah, I think we'll do a PowerShell Wednesday on that at some point. I'm in the same boat of never having used it, but some people love it.
Yeah.
Well,
this stuff is super fun. There is a GitHub available. If you go, I don't know if you have the ability to pop that GitHub up on the screen or not, but I can pull it up on my end.
The one for your stuff from today?
So if you go to github.com, if I can type github.com/tvcoaster/ what did I call it? PowerShell Wednesday, I think is it. Yeah. Oops. So PWSH Wednesday is what the not that magnifier. This magnifier. Posh Wednesday.
Boom, I posted it.
Cool. That's got literally all the code that we've seen today, including the PowerShell Universal app that we walked through here, is up on that GitHub. You can use it. The README has some information about using the PowerShell Universal app. You're going to need to do some stuff. You're going to have to set up those automation scripts because the buttons you use them. You're going to need a secret, which is your Cloudflare token if you use Cloudflare. That allows the API to work on the back end to get certificates. Or you might need to modify some of that stuff on the automation platform side to use the plugin that you require. But the app's there for you to use it.
Awesome. And your social handle is on the screen. People can find you there. I'll have you as a guest on the podcast in the coming weeks, but we can't end it yet. Dear friends, we're here live. For those of us who are live today, we do PowerShell Wednesday every single Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, every Wednesday. But today's special because we have a newly minted Microsoft MVP in our midst. Congratulations, Stevie Coaster, on your recent award and celebrating it with us here.
Yeah, thanks. It's still
I
a
can
little
hear
bit
them clapping.
surreal. It's still a little surreal, to be honest with you. So,
Oh, you've been in this
very
community
cool.
for such a long time, man. I remember very early on, you helped me out, like way
Yeah.
back in the day. I think it was something PDQ related.
Probably. Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man. You've always been very generous with your time, so well deserved. Hope you have a great weekend. Not too much golf.
I hope not.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
I actually have golf to go to here at the
Oh
top of
yeah,
the
you
hour.
actually
So.
do in like 10 minutes. So,
Yeah.
well, thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you, Stevie Coaster. We will stay in touch, and we'll see you next week. Take care, everybody.
Take care, guys.